Welcome in, everyone. I'm your Vegas Nation host, Cassie Soto, here to break down the Raiders' 2021 season, and what a season it was. The Raiders finished the regular season 10-7 and made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. And while, of course, it wasn't the storybook ending the team had hoped for, this will definitely be a season to remember. Joining me to break it all down is Raiders beat writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Vinny Bonsignor. Vinny, before we recap this last year for the Raiders, we have to, of course, hit on the most recent news for the Silver and Black, and that, of course, is that the team has let go of their general manager and Mike Mayock after 3 seasons together. This has to be one of the first of many domino pieces to fall for the Raiders, right, Vinny?
You would think, I think that it just signals that they're probably looking outside the building as well for a new head coach. That's not a guarantee, and maybe the new head coach, wants to work a partnership with Rich Bisaccia. That remains to be seen, but we do know for sure, obviously, that Mike Mayock is no longer with the Raiders. And for Mike, it was the misses on the first round picks with Cleve Farrell. Not quite sure what they still really have in Jonathan Abram. Josh Jacobs is a capable back, but not sure they're even going to pick up his 5th-year option. And then obviously the 2020 first round, when you're talking about no more Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, never made a mark before being released. There's only really 2 players from that draft class that have done really anything of any significance. Brian Edwards and John Simpson. The jury's still out on Amik Robertson, who's hasn't dressed in weeks. So not a great resume at the top of the draft. Those high draft issues were an obstacle that he couldn't overcome.
Well, I know you recently wrote an article after the firing, Vinny, talking about some potential candidates the Raiders could be going after now to fill this vacancy at the general manager position. Who are you thinking the Raiders might be going after? What sort of person are they going to be looking at?
I think it's more that the latter at this point. You're going to hear a lot of names, I'm sure. But I think what they're prioritizing is somebody that's either done it at a high level already, or somebody that's been a longstanding part of a very successful operation. And there's a bunch of really good candidates that fit that bill. If I'm Mark Davis, I think the first question I'm going to ask, actually 2, but the first one is, what is your plan? What is your specific plan to get this program to the next level as quickly as possible without any sort of rebuild? I don't think anyone wants to go down that path. What's the plan to get this operation to the very next level immediately? And then also, I would think that another question that he's going to ask is, how do you ensure as best as possible, understanding that the draft is always a bit of a crapshoot. There's always chance taking in the draft. But what is your plan to make sure that there's no longer the kinds of first rounds that they had in 2020 and 2021, or excuse me, 2019 and 2021, where there were, significant glitches in the operation and reaches that they probably shouldn't have made? That's, if I'm Mark Davis, I want immediate answers to those 2 questions.
Well, we know obviously that they have a role to fill now at general manager, and they could potentially, Vinny, and we're leaning towards they will have a spot open here at the head coaching position. Rich Bisaccia on Monday spoke to the press, and I don't know about you, Vinny, but his tone sounded to me very somber, almost like he knew that maybe it was going to be the last time he was going to be introduced as Raiders interim head coach. When you think about the fire that he was thrown into back in October and to where he led this team, their first playoff appearance in over 5 years, how much of a pat on the back does this guy deserve?
Significant. And I think one of the early good decisions that he made that really paved the way for everything was to understand, Gus Bradley, you're the head coach of the defense. Greg Olson, you're the head coach of the offense. I will take care of special teams and also some of the bigger decisions that come along during the course of a game, in collaboration with his 2 assistant, head coaches, if you want to couch it that way. So he allowed everybody to do their jobs as seamlessly as possible when John Gruden left. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. The question I think the Raiders have is that enough moving forward? It was enough to help stabilize things immediately and put this thing on the right path to get to the playoffs this year. But long range, I would think anyway, they're looking for something much more than that, and maybe even the leader of their football operation, the face of the operation. We'll see which direction they go, whether that's the general manager or whether that's the head coach, or maybe it's kind of a combination of the two. A package deal with a head coach, a strong head coach, and a preferred general manager. There's a lot of different directions that they can go in, but I think the last thing that they want to do at this point is take any kind of a step back from the momentum that they're building.
Well, talking about the team specifically here, Vinny, a 10-7 overall record, their first winning record since 2016. And I know they didn't make it out of the wild card round, but what sort of strides did you see this team make from start to finish of the season?
Well, I think, first and foremost, I thought their defense was much improved from last year. And we saw that, especially down the stretch where they kind of held it together. Even when the offense without Darren Waller, having lost Henry Ruggs, still a shaky offensive line, really wasn't clicking on all cylinders. They needed that defense to really keep them in games. They achieved that. That's a good thing moving forward. And I would expect a lot of those guys to be back next year, and then add and sprinkle onto it and try to improve it from where it was left off at the end of this season. They also learned how to fight. They also learned how to finish. They didn't, when there was adversity, and let's face it, there was a lot of it, they stood tall and faced it, and in a lot of cases overcame it. That's traits that you want to see in a championship caliber team. But I think moving forward now, they really need to come up with some answers at wide receiver. I think the lack of a dynamic wide receiver was really evident. I think they have to get the offensive line squared away. I think Brandon Parker did a serviceable job when thrown into the starting unit, but that can't be the answer long range. I would expect a serious upgrade at tackle. So if they could go find that wide receiver, and maybe it's a Devontae Adams who might be a free agent at the end of this year, and then they can fix that right tackle, I think they're going to be in business to take another step forward. But it's vital that they get those two positions taken care of.
Well, you named a lot of names there, Vinny, so I'll have you name a couple more for me. Who impressed you the most this season, either on or off the field?
Well, I think Max Crosby doing what he did, it wasn't the greatest year for him in 2020. He made some lifestyle changes. He got committed. He got dedicated. I think he really learned under the wing of Unique Ngakoue and just became a stellar football player. And if that's the Max Crosby that the Raiders can rely on moving forward, they've got a stud defensive end pass rusher out there, and that's a pretty good thing to have with your defense. I was really impressed with Denzel Perryman, the leadership and play that he brought to the defense. Casey Hayward kind of being that lockdown corner that they desperately needed. Offensively, Derek Carr, the way he held this thing together, I don't think anyone quite understands the task that was involved with that. And he was able to accomplish that and also be a good football player on the field in spite of some big time losses that he had to deal with. And so obviously Hunter Renfrow as well, having a spectacular season. He's just going to keep on building in that direction.
Well, on the flip side of that, Vinny, I know you highlighted some guys there. Now I need your opinion here on who maybe didn't step up to the plate as much as you thought they should have this season. Who did not impress this year for the Silver and Black?
Yeah, I mean, I think that offensive line is the first place you go in that regard. And really specifically like Alex Leatherwood, the Raiders wanted more. It's not unusual that an offensive lineman struggles in that first year or isn't the player that he's eventually going to become. But there were too many ups and downs for Alex Leatherwood, way too many penalties. He wasn't good at all in pass protection. He's got to get that figured out. To be as high of a draft pick as he was, the Raiders need more from that position and from him.
Well, last one here for you, Vinny. If you could put this season in a box, gift wrap it, put a pretty bow on it, put it on the shelf, would you say that it was a successful season? Would it go in the win column shelf?
Yeah, definitely. But I would also say it's the step before the step. I think that they definitely took a necessary step, but it wasn't the necessary step. There's another couple of steps that they need to take, and I think they're really close to taking that next step where they're perennial playoff contenders, where they don't go into games and you're wondering which Raider team is going to show up. The consistency that you need to be a viable, really good football team. the explosiveness that we're seeing from some of these other playoff teams right now. Some of that explosiveness, I think, that needs to be added. So it was a success for sure, especially given what they had to overcome. But from a talent standpoint, there's a little more ways to go. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that this offseason.
Great stuff as always, Vinny. Thank you so much. And this is just the first of many videos that we will be doing this week, reviewing the Raiders season, grading the coaching, offense, defense, special teams, everything you need to know about the Raiders 2021 season, all wrapped up nicely for you at vegasnation.com.